Welcome to the My Opinion Podcast, a show that focuses on leadership, life, and love to empower women around the world to be the best versions of themselves. The My Opinion Podcast is a weekly show with Maya's Motivation Monday, focusing on leadership topics for women, and special edition episodes that feature guest interviews and current events. Now, all in her opinion, here is your host, Maya Roffler.
Hi guys, welcome back to My Opinion. This is a special episode today about leadership and a leadership check-in on Maya's motivation. I always talk about leadership on this podcast, but I really just wanted to check in today and talk about leadership and talk about effective leadership skills during this time. I know the past couple episodes we've been talking about leadership skills and leadership qualities that make a really strong and amazing leader. And I'm going to continue to talk about that always on this podcast. And I think it's so important and always focusing on women. But we're in a really unique and interesting time where we're not only leading from afar, but we're also leading during a time where our opinions are very strong about certain topics, and we're at home and we have a lot of time to think and we have a lot of time to express ourselves, and we are really living in a time where we're making history. And when we're a leader of our own company or within an organization, or we're aspiring to be a leader, or if we're choosing who to be led by, it's a time to talk about these topics. So today on this special episode about leadership, I'm doing a leadership check-in. And how can you be an effective leader during this time? And what makes an effective leader during this time? And truly, how do you feel like you are being a good leader? And if you are not in a leadership role, how do you know if you're being led effectively? Or how do you select the right leader to follow? Or how do you do a check-in with yourself to ensure that you are with the right team or you're with the right leader? Because you might be a small team, might be just a few of you. So as I've talked about in other podcasts, I think one podcast I did a whole podcast on leading with empathy, and leading with empathy right now is more important than ever. And that, I think, is the number one thing. Really being able to put yourself in your team's shoes, really understanding how they're feeling, how they're processing everything that's going on, because we don't just have COVID happening anymore. And some of us are returning to work. It's not a new normal, though. There's still social distancing. Some things are opening in some places, but it's still not, it's a new normal. It's still not completely normal. So how are we dealing with that as leaders, and how are we truly putting ourselves in each individual's shoes and being empathetic? Because being empathetic doesn't mean that you truly agree with every single thing that that person thinks. It means that you are able to put yourself in their shoes and fully understand what it would be like to be in their situation. That's what it means to be empathetic. So true, amazing leaders are able to do that. And I think empathetic leaders are going to be the ones, in my opinion, that make it out of this stronger than ever and leading the best teams. And if you're not in a leadership role and you want to be a strong leader, that's what you should focus on, is being empathetic, or push yourself to be more empathetic. And that is what has made me a stronger and stronger leader through time, is being able to take myself out of my own self and put myself in other people's shoes. As I've mentioned in the past, and as I've admitted in the past, I've not always been the best at that. In my 20s, I wasn't super great at that. And it took work. And I think it comes easier for some people. And I didn't even realize that I'm actually quite an empath and I'm able to do that. It's really important, especially with all the racial issues that are happening right now in this country. This is not anything new. This has been going on for a long time. It's just being brought to the surface. So again, your ability to be empathetic and put yourself in other people's shoes is more important now than ever. We've had COVID. Now we have this major issue going on that's being bubbled up to the surface. So it's really important that you are an empathetic leader and you're putting yourself in other people's shoes and understanding why they're feeling this way, what has caused people to act in certain ways. That is going to create strong leadership moving forward and strong change. This is even more difficult when you're leading from afar. So I talk about communication in more than one podcast. I talk about this in almost every single podcast about leadership. Because if you want to be an effective leader, or you're aspiring to be an effective leader, or you're not even in leadership, and you want to be a leader, the more effectively you communicate, the better leader you will be in the future, or you'll grow as a leader. But when you're leading from afar, which is what I specialize in, that's my niche, which we all have them, but that's my niche and kind of what I specialize in on this podcast too, is leading from afar. And that's what we are doing for the most part. Every leader right now at some capacity is leading their team from afar. Even if most of your people have come back to work, you're still managing aspects from afar because we have a virtual aspect in some way. So communication has changed over the past couple months, regardless of what you do, regardless of what kind of work you do, what silo, what channel, wherever you are, what industry. Communication has changed, I think, for the better in some ways. And if you've been able to pivot and shift with it, that's amazing. But the more effectively you communicate and consistently you communicate with your teams, because you're leading from afar for the most part, again, the stronger you're going to walk out of this as a leader. And if you're not in a leadership role, and if you're part of a team, practice that. Practice that now. How can you more effectively speak with your peers or speak with other people on your team, or how can you manage up? Which is another podcast for a different day, but how can you manage up? And that means, how can you talk to your manager more effectively? If you feel like the person that's leading you isn't effectively communicating with you, doesn't mean that they're right, but practice your leadership skills by managing your manager and set up times for you to speak with them, for you to set the expectation, for you to create the communication that needs to happen. And then you're practicing and you're becoming a leader yourself. The more we communicate during this time, though, you'll be able to be more empathetic, whether you are in the leadership role that you want to be in or you're looking to grow and develop. But having a leadership check-in right now, and that's why I wanted to talk about this today with you, is so important. It's really a time to evaluate how people are feeling and how they're doing, and not just saying, I hope you're safe and well and healthy. That's all great. I think that's wonderful, and we should continue to do that and band together. But being empathetic, learning communication skills that are evolving and developing as we're on constant video calls and we're on, constant chats and Slacks and all these different virtual platforms and different ways to manage and communicate. We need to remember that while these tools are so amazing, we have to check back in and find out how everyone truly is doing and put ourselves in every single person's shoes and be empathetic. That's really what it all comes back to, and that's why there's so many articles out there saying that an empathetic leader is always the strongest leader. A confident leader is also one of the strongest leaders out there as well. And I'm going to talk about this on a future podcast. But I wanted to do this leadership check-in. I feel like it's so important to check in, but being confident. Being confident is very different than being arrogant. Arrogant is someone who lives in a box, is closed-minded, is not open to anything. A confident leader knows when to admit that they've made a mistake, knows when to admit that they need to change course, or is open to new ideas. And for instance, going back to my example of you're not getting the communication that you need, and you need to manage up, and you need to set those expectations with your manager, your supervisor, or your leader. And so you set up times, you manage that. The strongest, most effective leaders will be open to that. A confident leader is open to that. An arrogant leader will not be open to that and will not be consistent with that. A confident leader is one of the strongest leaders that is out there. An arrogant leader is the weakest. It's obvious from the example. But we sometimes can be jaded when we first see that type of leader and we don't see the difference. So it's really important that we do, because confidence is important. You want to follow somebody confident. In the beginning, sometimes you want to follow someone arrogant until you realize that they're completely closed off and not open to anything. Confidence means that you're willing to go with them, and when they fail, they want to learn from it and move on. And they're open to new ideas. They're open to charge forward, and they're not afraid to fail. And during this time, a confident leader is so important. When doing this leadership check-in, think to yourself about the person leading you. Think to yourself as a leader, yourself. Am I all of these things? Am I open to fail? Will I dust myself back off and say, okay, what did I learn from that, and charge forward? Because right now, we are reinventing, we are pivoting, we are changing so many things about every single industry out there. The way we do business in general, the way we live our lives. So we have to be confident leaders. We cannot be arrogant leaders where we think we know it all and put ourselves in a box. And we cannot be, for lack of a better way of saying it, wimpy leaders that crawl in a corner and just want to hide. We have to be confident leaders who charge forward, are willing to make mistakes, pick different platforms, figure out what works for our team, what doesn't work for our team, weekly calls, Zoom, happy hours, whatever's going to work for your team. It's trial and error right now. This is a new world for everyone. But being open to that feedback is so important. I'm calling this a leadership check-in because I think it is so important to check in with those three aspects, because I believe those are I have so many different things I talk about with being a leader and what's important with being a leader, and leading from afar is really, again, what I specialize in. For those of you who continue to listen, you know I've worked remotely and from home, but I've traveled extensively during this time too, so really remotely for over 10 years. So I know what it takes to work for someone from afar, to be the leader. I've led very large teams. This is a new normal though, so checking in during this is huge. So take that time, reflect, look within yourself, what's working, what's not working. But to dig just one level deeper, are you aligned with the values of who you're working for, working with, and who's working for you? And what I mean by this is we have so many things happening right now. COVID was kind of the spike of this. And then we have all these other things happening. Obviously, I live in Atlanta. I live in the heart of where the protests happen and have happened. I'm very aware of everything going on. And I work with and I'm aligned with the teams that I am a part of. And I am in charge of another podcast of Crown for Success and Boss Ladies Mindset. I encourage you guys to go listen. I have a podcast out almost every single day from different women. I know you guys have seen me posting about that. Please go listen. My podcasts are also on there as well. And I'm also a part of some other ventures in my business life, and I am always aligned. And I think that's really important. So think about, we're in a different time. So think about who you work for. Are you aligned with their values? Are you aligned with the company values? Are you aligned with everything going on within the company? Do you believe what your leader believes? You don't have to believe every single thing, but it's like believing in the culture of your company. And if you're not aligned, it's probably time to reevaluate. And also when you're thinking about going to work somewhere, these are things you want to think about. And then as a leader, think about that when you're bringing people onto your team. Because if you're not aligned, your team is not going to be as strong as you want it to be. You really want to create a sense of unity. And right now, and in the future, it's just going to increase, I believe. Social media is such a strong thing out there, right? And a strong platform. And we have access to really anybody on social media. You can put yourself on private, you can put yourself, a couple settings, but at the end of the day, you can pretty much figure out what people believe on social media. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. And it's a great way to network. It's a great way to create your business, but it's also a great way to know if you are aligned with your leader. It's also a great way to know if your team's aligned. There are a lot of tools to do that, and more and more platforms are coming out every single day. But this is a time to do a leadership check-in. How do you feel about your leadership? How do you feel about yourself as a leader? Are you being empathetic? Are you communicating effectively? How confident are you feeling? Are you willing to fail and continue to move forward? Are you open to new ideas? And are you aligned? Are you aligned with your team? Are you aligned with yourself? Are you aligned with your company? How does your vision look for the future? These are the things that we need to be taking the time to do right now. When so many things are happening around us, this is the time of change. This is the time to reflect within and bring change outside. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you back here next week.
Thank you so much for listening to the My Opinion Podcast. You can catch up on past episodes on the My Opinion Podcast website at www.myopinionpodcast.com, as well as read the My Opinion blog and contact Maya directly with your questions. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at My Opinion Podcast and Maya Roffler. We'll see you back here next week.